Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle to Yancey, Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
How's it going, and welcome to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be talking about some rookie quarterbacks in the 2021 NFL draft class. The landing spots are determined. We know where these guys are going to go and play at with their future NFL teams and franchises. So we're going to be diving into this information and breaking down how I see things playing out for these young quarterbacks. Just like my last episode where I broke down the top rookie running backs in this draft class, I've got 8 guys up on the board that we're going to be taking a look at in today's video. So if you're new around here to the SFS channel, make sure to head down and click that subscribe button and turn the bell on so you're notified whenever I come out with a new episode or a new piece of content for you all. Also, go check out our social medias at the top left-hand corner of your screen and get some other content from us on other platforms. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into our 8th player. Alrighty, if you're familiar with the channel and the series that I've started to put together here with these rookie players and the videos that I've started to compile, I've done a top 10 overall players list with all of the rookies in fantasy football for both dynasty and redraft purposes. And then like I talked about in the intro, I did that top 8 running backs list that I put out just a couple days ago. We go in descending order here. We start at the bottom of the list. So with that being said, Davis Mills is my quarterback 8 for both dynasty for these rookie players and redraft purposes. Like I talk about in a lot of these videos as well, don't read too much into that number though. That doesn't really matter too much. The main thing I want to talk about and the main thing I want you to take away is the actual information and what I say about these players, because I've said this before, these ratings are going to shuffle and change drastically based on news and information that happens. We're going to see injuries happen. There's going to be a lot of roster moves made by these teams. So stuff is going to be constantly changing here and shuffling up. So just listen to what I've got to say here, and I'll hopefully guide you in the right direction to make the best choices for your fantasy football team. Davis Mills, my number 8 quarterback. He's a player who I think is probably in the worst situation of these 8 players that I could see stepping onto the field in the somewhat near future. And by the somewhat near future, that means potentially not even this season. For a lot of these players, they're not going to be day one starters. They're not going to see the field, maybe even in year one. Davis Mills absolutely could be one of those players, and he's probably in the worst situation of the bunch of these guys. He's playing for the Houston Texans. They selected him in the 3rd round with their first overall pick on the board, obviously losing a lot of those picks in that Laramie Tunsil trade and other moves that they've made for their roster in the past couple seasons. Davis Mills is in a mess right now. He doesn't have too much to work with if he is to be the starter. They currently have Deshaun Watson under contract and on the roster, but we all know how that's playing out. Maybe he doesn't play football this year. Maybe he doesn't suit up for a game for any team this season. It's a very real possibility. And they've also got Tyrod Taylor that they brought in from the free agent market. But I think it's a very real chance here that Tyrod Taylor, who dealt with some injury issues last season and obviously lost that job early on to Justin Herbert after he got out there on the football field, there's a chance that Davis Mills finds himself out there at some point, whether it be because of injury or poor performance from Tyrod Taylor. Deshaun Watson obviously could put an end to all of this if he comes back and plays, but he's not working with too hot of wide receivers. Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, Kiki QT, those are the top 3 wide receivers. The tight end position is topped off by Jordan Akins, but that's nothing too fantastic. So we don't have great weapons to throw the football to here for Davis Mills, and this just isn't a desirable fantasy football situation. Maybe if you're really desperate for quarterback, you take a late round flyer on Davis Mills in a rookie dynasty draft, maybe in the 6th or 7th round. If you're looking for a guy who at least has the chance to see the football field this season, or maybe even next, because if Deshaun Watson is potentially moved, that's going to change a lot of the way that the Houston Texans are organized structurally. So Davis Mills is not a guy I'm too excited about, if I'm being completely honest. But since he does have a very real chance of making a start at some point this season, he makes the list here. But for all those reasons I just mentioned, he is the last guy on the list down here at number 8. The next player up is Kellen Mond, and Kellen Mond is headed to the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, he was picked in the 3rd round, and this might be somewhat of a big deal for the Vikings here. Kellen Mond was not drafted to come in and start this season, if we're being completely honest. I don't think he has too much redraft value at all for that purpose. Kirk Cousins has that job locked down for the foreseeable future in my eyes. I think that maybe the move for Minnesota here is to have Kirk Cousins play out the duration of his contract. And once that's up, you've got Kellen Mond on a cheap rookie deal. And this is a guy who has a lot of nice traits and a lot of talent that can be developed. And not to mention, he's got some pretty nice weapons to work with as well if he is to see the field this season. Dalvin Cook and Alex Madison in the backfield, obviously a great start for a young quarterback to have a sufficient run game behind them. He's also got Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson to throw the football to, and Irv Smith is a pretty darn good pass catcher as well at the tight end position. So Kellen Mond, like I said, he's probably not supposed to start this year. The ideal thing is probably to not see him on the football field this season, so he's a lot more of a dynasty play. I would certainly pick him over a Davis Mills, even a couple rounds sooner, just because he does have that high upside and potential. He's got some mobility to work with as well, and he can be some sort of a dual threat quarterback at the next level. I think it's just a matter of getting an opportunity and capitalizing on it for Kellen Mond here at number 7. Then at number 6, Kyle Trask, who's headed to Tampa Bay. He was selected with the last pick in the second round of this year's draft. I think this is the best situation for a guy that isn't necessarily drafted to be a guaranteed franchise quarterback. Kyle Trask, for all we know, could be a career-long backup and never see an opportunity to start a game in the National Football League. Playing behind Tom Brady right now, there is no rush to get Kyle Trask on the football field. But what I do love is if for some reason he has to go out there this season, once again, this is a guy who is not a redraft play. You're not going to be drafting him. He will be a waiver wire pickup if you find yourself starting him for some reason in a 2021 redraft fantasy league. Nonetheless, though, Kyle Trask has a slew of weapons to throw the football to. If he does find himself out there this year or next, he's got Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, those guys under contract. Obviously, Godwin is playing on the franchise tag, so that could change. But nonetheless, I think Tampa Bay would do whatever it takes to keep him around there. He's got Gronk, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate on that roster, and a slew of running backs as well, and not to mention Antonio Brown for at least this season as well. So the reason Kyle Trask is above a guy like Kellen Mond, above a Davis Mills, is what he has around him to work with. It's clearly the most elite and most superior class of surrounding talent. So I think Kyle Trask at least has the ability, as a guy with a big arm, a player who produced well with high-end talent like Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney at the college level when he played at Florida. I think he can be fairly successful with what he would have to work with in Tampa Bay. And I think taking him with a mid-round pick in a rookie dynasty draft would be somewhat reasonable here for Trask at my quarterback 6 spot. At number 5, I've got Mac Jones, who is a New England Patriot now, selected with the 15th overall pick in the NFL draft on day 1. I think Mac Jones, plain and simple, has the lowest ceiling of any of these surefire franchise quarterbacks, and at least that's the goal for these top 5 picks that were selected in the first round. Mac Jones being the last of the bunch, taken all the way up there at 15, shows you how much that organization's thought of these guys in this NFL draft class. I think Mac Jones, he's the first guy on this list that has a chance to have legitimate redraft value and be a guy who is actually picked maybe at the back end, maybe the last round or 2 of your drafts. I think that you're probably looking at deeper leagues and leagues that have maybe 12, 14 members in them. Mac Jones is not going to start day 1, and at least that's the report right now. This is Cam Newton's team for the time being, but obviously the long-term plan is with Mac Jones here, with him being selected in the top half of the first round. But if we're being real here, I think a legitimate expectation for Mac Jones is a poor man's Tom Brady. And I mean that in the best way. Mac Jones reportedly is a highly intelligent football player, very quick at making reads, finds the right and the open player, and he ultimately gets things done. But what this guy is not is a scrambler. He's not going to move around the pocket. He's going to struggle when he has pressure in his face, like any quarterback would, but he's going to have a lesser ability to evade and escape that pressure in the pocket, and he's probably going to go down, take some sacks, and maybe struggle a bit early on. So I think Mac Jones, he can be a low-end starting quarterback in fantasy football, I think, and honestly is still more of a project player in Dynasty because we don't know if we're going to see him right away like a lot of guys on this list. So Mac Jones, I think he has a decent amount of potential. I don't love the weapons right now. Nelson Aguilar is fine. The 2 tight ends, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, both have decent value at the tight end position in fantasy football and are good pass-catching threats, but they don't have a dominant, clear-cut number 1 on this football team. So I think that there needs to be some more insertion of talent and more utilization of draft picks and offseason spending to get him even more things that he needs to be successful, because going from a college team where you had Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, and Jerry Jeudy and now going to the Patriots, who are one of the most talent-depleted teams in the National Football League at the pass-catching positions. That might be a bit of a rude awakening, so I could see some obstacles in Mac Jones' way. Then at number 4, I've got Trey Lance. This is another player. Just like the rest of the guys on this list so far, he's not going to come in and start day one. Kyle Shanahan has repeatedly backed Jimmy Garoppolo as the current starter for this football team. And obviously, if Jimmy G gets hurt, Trey Lance is coming in. If Jimmy G is playing poorly and they're losing games, Trey Lance is probably coming in. But this is not a player that they want to start right away. They want to nurture him and develop him into the player he can be, because Trey Lance has, in my opinion, the highest ceiling of any of these players. He's not only in the best situation, I think that his tool set can be put to the best use. And between his offensive line, which is a top 10 unit in the NFL, the coaching that he has from Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan is excellent. He's going to have a lot of opportunities there. The personnel surrounding him, he's got George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and a slew of running backs to work with. There are so many reasons that Trey Lance is set up for success with the San Francisco 49ers. I think it would be foolish to not take him within the first 1 or 2 rounds of a Dynasty rookie draft, because I think that at the end of the day, this guy could be a big hit, and I think he could have a lot of difference in teams' outcomes for Dynasty leagues. So go out there. I'm completely comfortable. This is kind of the spot where I start to be more and more willing to invest higher draft capital into some of these rookie quarterbacks, because Trey Lance is a player I think has really high upside. So before we get into the number 3 player on my quarterbacks list, I want to take a quick second and talk to you about some other ways you can get access to content here from the SFS brand, myself and Eric. We have a website called sizzlefantasy.com where we offer draft guide collections and give you even more insight and analysis into our top fantasy football picks for both the 2021 redraft season and our Dynasty rookie kit, which goes beyond just this year. So without further ado, I'll take it away and take a quick second to talk to you guys about that. If you're looking for more information on this year's NFL rookie class following the NFL draft, head over to sizzlefantasy.com where you can pre-order one of the 2021 draft kits, where you can get yourself hooked up with either the season-long or rookie dynasty bundle and get in-depth player profile and analysis on all of this year's rookies and veteran players. That's sizzlefantasy.com, and select the option that best fits your fantasy football needs. Alrighty, you guys, sizzlefantasy.com. Don't forget it. Check out the draft guide collection and pick the option that best fits your fantasy football needs. At number 3 here, I've got Zach Wilson, and now we're moving into the really high picks on the draft board. Obviously, Trey Lance taken at number 3 here, who is my number 4 quarterback for fantasy football in the long-term game for Dynasty. Zach Wilson gets a slight nudge here because I try and balance this list out in my ranking styles between redraft and Dynasty. We're not exactly close enough to the season yet where I want to split these videos up, because I think that there's just a lot of overall great general content to discuss with these players. So Zach Wilson is we're getting into players now that can have a real significant impact in fantasy football in the redraft phase of things. Maybe Trey Lance comes in and he's a later round pick in your redraft leagues, those last couple rounds, just like a guy like Mac Jones. Zach Wilson comes in here and he's starting to creep up even farther on that board, because we look at Zach Wilson as a day one starter. And Zach Wilson's a kid who has all the world of talent. This guy has a great arm, makes throws off balance. He makes the highlight plays. This is a comp to Aaron Rodgers if we're talking about what we've heard throughout the draft and the offseason. Zach Wilson has all the tools and the intangibles to be a playmaking quarterback and to really elevate the players around him. The one thing that I just can't get over with Zach Wilson, though, is he plays for the New York Jets. And before you get on me for hating on the Jets, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, but the second team I root for is the New York Jets. And I'm just trying to be realistic with these players. I don't like to overhype guys. I don't like to put false hope into players that I don't actually believe in. And while I really want to believe in Zach Wilson and tell you he's going to be a home run pick, the Jets play in the toughest defensive coach division in football. Brian Flores, Sean McDermott, and of course Bill Belichick, who across his entire career has absolutely eaten rookie quarterbacks alive, even second-year guys at that. It's just a steep mountain ahead for Zach Wilson. He's going to have a really tough time. And there's a lot of question marks for what he's working with and what is playing around him. They upgraded offensive line, which I think is a great start. He's got Mekhi Becton giving him some really nice pass protection from the blind side, and they just went out and got Elijah Vera Tucker and traded up for him in the top of the NFL draft last week. But Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder, Elijah Moore is a really nice prospect they just picked in the second round. And then you look at Denzel Mims, who was their second round pick just a year before. Those are nice pieces, and those are guys that could turn out to be something huge, but we just haven't seen it yet. Corey Davis is a former very high first-round pick. He's got all the talent in the world. He just hasn't translated that into an NFL wide receiver one body of work yet in his 4 seasons in the league. So there's going to be opportunities for Zach Wilson to pop off this season, have a great year. I'm just not sure that it's going to be an immediate impact, even though he will be out there day one. There's a lot of question marks. I think he's a nice high upside pick, and if you're going to pick him in redraft leagues, I would make sure he's your second or third quarterback on your roster because of the risk involved with this. High risk, high reward for this season in fantasy football, but hopefully if he can at least get the tires on the track here in year one for Dynasty, long term, this can be a very prosperous pick here for fantasy teams, and a guy who I think can develop really, really well. And if he does have the development and the increase in skill and maturity that I'm hoping for in year one, that'll translate into year two. It'll translate into year three. And down the road, we can look back and think about this as a highly successful pick for both the Jets and Dynasty owners in those rookie drafts that are so vital this season. At number 2, I've got Justin Fields. And I think a lot of people are probably questioning right now how Justin Fields is going to be ahead of a guy like Zach Wilson, who is going to start day one, when Justin Fields, we don't necessarily know. And the argument right now out there is that Justin Fields should be the day one starter. I'm not even banking on that here with my number 2 ranking selection here. I've got Justin Fields as my number 2 quarterback because I think he's in the second best situation and has the chance to be out there as early as any of these other guys, and also factoring in the risk that he might not be. And I think that maybe behind Trey Lance and Trevor Lawrence, Fields is in the next best situation. He's got a really clever play calling head coach in Matt Nagy, who I think is really going to use his skill set, and I think it can be a really beneficial relationship between the two. I think Justin Fields' skill set and the tools he brings to the table really complement Matt Nagy as a play caller, and I think that Matt Nagy is going to really enjoy using Justin Fields and his traits to bring that offense to its full ceiling and realize its true potential. Justin Fields is my second ranked quarterback in this draft class. As a Packer fan, I'll be honest, I'm terrified about this pick. I think that Justin Fields could be the next guy to take a hold of the NFC North and really grasp firmly the division and just run the table here. Justin Fields, very athletic, ran a sub 4.5 40-yard dash. The dude's got wheels, got a cannon for an arm, really nice deep ball accuracy, and he makes smart checkdowns in the passing game when he runs out of time. I think that he has a lot of great tools and skill set, and right now he's working with an average offensive line, but that was addressed in the second round with Tevin Jenkins. They're going to continue to hopefully address that in future drafts and future off seasons. And I think when you look at the talent he's got around him at the pass catching and running back positions, he's got a really nice foundation for other players to work with. A-Rob has been one of my favorite fantasy football players for the last 2 years, one of the most under the radar and most consistent wide receiver ones that does not get the respect he deserves. Darnell Mooney was a stud last season, got a lot of space down the field, but was simply overthrown and really misused because of the quarterback's inability to get him the football out of breaks at the right times last year. And Anthony Miller has made plays in his NFL career as well. So just out of a top 3 perspective, that wide receiver core is already looking like a really nice unit for Fields to work with. And then Cole Kmet, a young developing tight end that they can put to use. Tariq Cohen's coming back. He's a really nice scat back out of the backfield. And David Montgomery's going to take the pressure off with an immediate workhorse usage level in that Chicago offense. So Justin Fields is a player I'm extremely excited about. Look for him as a late round 1 to early round 2 pick in rookie dynasty drafts. And I think that maybe around rounds 13, 14, 15, you can start thinking about him in those redraft leagues if you're looking for a quarterback 2 on your roster with super high upside, just like a Zach Wilson. Then this one's obvious. Trevor Lawrence here at my quarterback 1 spot. Trevor Lawrence is the safest pick at the quarterback position, and he's the most instantly translatable player to the NFL. He's the best pro-style quarterback in this draft class. The arm talent, the accuracy is insane. The size, even the ability to be an athlete and get outside of the pocket and move is very impressive from what we've seen out of Trevor Lawrence. He's going to make an impact on Jacksonville in this franchise in a major way. And I think that people underestimate the situation that he's being placed in here. This isn't an elite offensive line in Jacksonville by any means, but it's certainly an offensive line that's competent. And we saw James Robinson have the most scrimmage yards by a rookie undrafted running back in NFL history running behind this line. So I think bringing in a guy like Travis Etienne, who has a lot of chemistry with Trevor Lawrence from college, is going to be super beneficial to this offense. That's going to give Trevor Lawrence a safety valve in the passing game to have frequent check down passes too and make a lot of explosive plays with minimal effort throws. And then you look at DJ Chark, a player with really high upside that we've seen flashes from in his NFL career that Trevor Lawrence could bring the best out of and have a really nice wide receiver quarterback relationship with. Laviska Shenault is a Swiss Army knife in that offense. It's going to do a lot of diverse things for that football team. And then Marvin Jones, a seasoned vet that's going to come in and be productive. We've seen him do it in 2 other locations, Cincinnati and Detroit. I think that's going to be a really good situation as well. Trevor Lawrence has the most redraft value of any of these quarterbacks by a mile because we know he's going to come in and translate day one. Think of him like your Joe Burrow last season. Joe Burrow was going in the middle rounds of redraft leagues in 2020. And he was being picked fairly high. He was being picked above some veterans last season. So I think that's much to be expected here for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think I'm going to overdraft on Trevor Lawrence and overhype him, overvalue him heading into drafts. But I do think he is a player. If he falls to you at the right spot, you might feel comfortable taking. Again, as a quarterback too in Dynasty, you don't want to put all your chips to the middle of the table for rookies and overdraft them in redraft leagues because it might take half the season for them to finally understand what's going on and to finally develop and fit into the mold that they've been asked to by their coaches. It takes time to mature and get used to the NFL, so you got to be patient with these guys and not expect them to carry your teams from day one. But from a dynasty side, this is a mid to late first round pick type player. If you really need a quarterback, you can even overdraft into the top 5 of the draft maybe, but I would never take him over a Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase type players. Those guys are untouchable. You have to keep them above quarterbacks just because of the positional scarcity difference. When you've got 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League and you only start one of them, unless you're playing a super flex league in fantasy football, you just can't value them as highly as those other players. But nonetheless, Trevor Lawrence is a very, very, very safe pick here. I think he's one of the most low-risk investments of anyone in this rookie class, whether we're talking redraft or dynasty leagues. So I don't think you can go wrong with him here at my quarterback 1 spot. Alrighty, there you have it. Those are my top 8 quarterbacks at the moment here in early May for the 2021 fantasy football season. We talked some redraft today. We talked some dynasty. It's time for you in the comment section to let me know any questions you still have about these players at the quarterback position or any other positions in fantasy football. Running back, wide receiver, tight end. I'll even talk defenses and kickers with you guys if you really want me to. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.